amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remain blessed.
We'll turn our attention to security matters now, and Brigadier General Sani Usman joins us next. He's the former spokesperson, former director, Army Public Relations. Good morning, and thank you for joining us at the program today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your program.
Well, how does it feel when you hear your colleagues, former top military brass, those in the hierarchy, they talk tough about what to do with security, but almost on a regular basis, we see the contrary playing out there on the streets?
Naturally, one will feel concerned because, you know, the country ought to have done better than it is in terms of security and other aspects of socio-economic life. But of course, every situation has to be taken into the context in which it occurs. Talking about security challenges, take for instance what just happened last week in Niger State. It was so unfortunate and quite saddening that we lost precious lives, especially that of the security forces of the Nigerian army. And so you look at a particular, you know, situation and look at the circumstances that brought about that. But by and large, it calls for great concern from all Nigerians. And it's a collective thing that we should also be worried about the security situation, more so given the fact that the country is fast approaching the 2023 general elections, and we need to have a credible, free and fair election, and that could not take place in an atmosphere of insecurity.
Yeah, but that particular incident you speak about, the president has spoken up about it, the governor has spoken up about it, and there's still more, but there's so many people trying to wrap their heads around it because there are several figures that are being bandied. Some say 32. If 32 soldiers were lost in that, how many is a battalion? So if that amount of soldiers were lost, there's clearly a lot more concern than the way we are approaching some of these things. It does appear as though they haven't told us the entire facts of this matter.
Well, that is why I said every situation has to be, you know, viewed from the particular, I mean, the context under which it occurs. The most unfortunate incidents that occur in Shiroro, in Niger State last week, is quite unfortunate. And the facts are that what is there, you know, on the public domain actually is not exactly what the true facts are. What I want to say here is that I think there are some kind of mischievous elements that are trying to insinuate certain things that are not correct. On the contrary, honestly, I would like to sympathize with the Nigerian security forces, particularly the Nigerian army, for the loss of the precious lives. And I know that the officer and his men, you know, fought gallantly, and they did not die in vain, because as a matter of fact, if I may have my way, they should be given a national honor posthumously, because the facts are that there was a distress call at the camp, and the young man rose to the occasion. But unfortunately, there is this issue of the, you know, menace of informants that, unknown to him, there were, you know, the bandits or the criminal elements also have a kind of ambush element, but they were bogged down. But they fought gallantly, and they made sure that they would rather lose their lives than allow, you know, the perpetrators of the crime to go with either equipment or any other person. But unfortunately, sadly, they were, you know, they abducted some people, and of course we lost those precious lives of the security forces. So sincerely speaking, we need to commend them for, you know, doing what they did, because they rose to the occasion. And contrary to what people were saying, they do not even know that those were the facts of the matter. All they wanted to do is to protect and rescue Nigerians or whoever that was being abducted by the criminal elements. And these are things that have been going on over time. But I think what we should do is to look at all these issues and make sure that there are certain things that need to be done, that the military should not even get involved in some of these things. Take, for instance, the issue of, good governance, the issue of, infrastructural development. Look at the road network from Handogari to the other adjoining towns. A journey that would have taken you 20 minutes now, it will take you 2 hours, and it affects even the performance. Then the circumstances under which the security forces also operate. What is the number on the ground? What is the level of support they are getting from the people? So these are the issues that we have to look at. And beyond even the saying things, passing instructions here and there, there is need for a follow-up. And there is need to look at issues as they were, walking the talk, not just talking as it is.
One of the most troubling things for me, every time these issues come up, I continue to express my confidence in the intelligence that we have in the country, in the military, in the police, the military, the intelligence community generally. And so sometimes I just wonder if we couldn't have gotten ahead of it. For instance, there are a sizable number of security consultants that we've spoken with on this program who continue to connect the dots between some of the issues you've raised about good governance and the fact that there is a mining site, and that mining site is a call to insecurity one way or another. From where you sit as a former military operative, is this something we could have forestalled, knowing that there have been such issues as unrest, insecurity at mining sites where we unfortunately lost these precious souls?
Yeah, you are quite right. This is not just about mining too. Any business establishment, definitely you have to take into cognizance the effect it has on the society. Either it could be environmental, it could be security. Definitely a mining site, you look at what is the level of skills available, within the local community. You have to import certain equipment, you have to bring about expertise, and all the rest. That will attract, the interest of, the criminally minded people, and of course the legitimate business people, because they are also service support and what have you. So by and large, you have to also look at what is the security requirement, what are the likely, the normal, SWOT analysis of establishing, or, even common economics will tell you, when you are localizing industry, establishing industry, there are certain factors you have to take into consideration. So it is quite true about this issue, and more so now, given the economic hardship and the fact that whatever is being mined is, is a kind of something that will bring in, economic prosperity and what have you. So a lot of people will be interested. So to what extent have you take those factors into consideration and make sure that there is adequate security? That is entirely a different matter. It's just like our educational system. People will establish school without thinking of the security requirement of those schools. So it goes with the mining side. Now, the issue here is that there are so many security challenges all over the country, and, some of them are even avoidable. To what extent have you involved the time-tested conflict resolution mechanism so that you can be able to deal with them, dealing with the root causes of this, so that you can concentrate on more urgent and more important security issues?
General,
where you have the security personnel spread all over, particularly the military, which is not supposed to be so.
On that issue,
now,
just 1 second, on that issue of conflict resolution, my sincere apologies, on that issue of conflict resolution that you talked about, there needs to be a government in place in that locality. You talked about how local some of these issues are. But if we look at it now, I mean, the issue of the land belongs to the state government. What is under that land belongs to the federal government. So one is wondering where the connection is at that point. And add that to the fact that this happened in a local government. There is no governance. You talked about good governance. General, there is no governance. There is no good governance where there is no governance. In the local governments, in many parts of Nigeria, the local government systems are largely absent. So one is wondering if you would also connect that dot as to maybe because we do not have local governments as effective as they ought to be in the various states, that we are not able to get ahead of these things before they come up.
Yeah, I'm coming to that actually, because the issue is about intelligence and what have you, and what you have just made mention of is something that I am also coming to. Why? Because I made mention of good governance. Good governance. We have 3 tiers of governments in this country: the federal, state, and the local government, and how many of the local government out of 774 local governments in this country are functioning optimally? I said some of them actually are just there for the sake of issuance of indigenous form for those people who want to get recruited into the military and what have you. Negating those primary responsibilities of the local government system. We have had an instance in Zamfara State just recently when the security directive was given. No mention was made of the local governments in the state. They were just talking about the emirate. So these are the starting points. And Niger State has the highest gazetted, I think, game reserve, or so to speak, in this country. So to what extent have you involved, the local government and the local populace in the security of that, of those forests and what have you? Because every security challenge happens in a particular state, in a particular local government, in a particular district, and sometimes in a particular locality. What is the level of the relationship? And that brings the issue of intelligence. Remember, it was a good Samaritan that sent a distress call to these gallant soldiers, and they rose to the occasion. But unfortunately, the caller couldn't have called to, or has not seen, the fact that these criminal elements have also made contingent plans to ambush the reinforcement or the rescue team, the responders to the distress calls. So these are the issues. Some of them, they are even doing that innocently. And tied to that is the socio-economic deprivation we have in this country, because with mere, pittance, some of them will just be divulging information. And I can tell you what is happening there is that there were so many of the informants, infiltrating the society, to the extent that whenever they have catchwords or code words for some of these things that they will ask how many kunkuru. Kunkuru is a Hausa word for tortoise, but they refer to armored personnel carrier, the APC. How many APCs are the the military moving with, so that the adversary will know about it. And you should understand the criminal elements, they are so demarcated to the point that there is even an understanding among themselves. In this instance, actually, the one could go to another person's territory or top to go and commit atrocity. The other one will turn a blind eye, just like we have, most unfortunately, with some of our neighboring countries. The proliferations of small arms within the Nigerian society, they pass through some other countries. They will turn a blind eye. You cannot. You can pass through, but definitely you will not drop the weapons in this country. So you rather take it elsewhere. So that is exactly the level of understanding and cooperation among these criminal elements. And the people know it. And these are some of the things that the government ought to take into cognizance. How do you break the people's, how do you improve the people's resilience so that they can be able to resist, these criminal elements that that have an understanding, that have been perpetuating crimes, on daily basis among the Nigerian society. So this is the issue. But then the local government system comes into play there, because they form a critical kind of buffer zone for the society. Organizing, simple issues that could have been solved within the society. But now everything has been lumped to the state and the federal government, that an ordinary person doesn't even know what to do. And these criminal elements take advantage of these vulnerabilities, provide soft loans, provide inducements, for them to open, businesses and all the rest. And what is the price? To give information. What is the price? To, support one way or the other, the criminal elements is against supporting the government forces and what have you. So unless we connect these dots and proactively act on them, we'll continue to be going around on vicious cycle. And I made reference to walking, the talk. It is not just enough to issue instructions, you have to follow it up. The people that own these mining sites are known to the government. What is the government? Somebody has issued them license. Have you followed the due procedures before they even establish the mining sites and what have you? And it will even shock you to know that there is no correspondence, gain on the part of those miners, vis-a-vis government revenue. So these are the issues that we really need to tackle. Because had it been that the government is proactive and is getting much out of it, it can be able to do something in terms of ensure corporate social responsibility, ensure that the environment is secured, ensure that, of course, there is no environmental pollution and it is secured, and the level of involvement of the host community will be much more, and they will take ownership of all this.
Speaking of
these
tackling,
things are missing. So whenever you have security challenges, you always bring in the security forces, particularly the military, and there is limit to which they can do, especially given the environment they found themselves. And we need the numbers. We need other equipment, particularly communications and what have you.
Speaking of tackling the issues, and I'm glad you mentioned equipment now. First of all, let me just say that you rightly pointed out that the poor terrain, in that area impacted on the ability of, the security forces, the army now, to take on the terrorists. That should be emphasized so that the authorities, that should attend to it will attend to it. But then again, the asymmetric warfare is on our hands, and the Chief of Army Staff rightly pointed it out in the track that we listened to earlier. Some reports quote the firefight between the security operatives and the terrorists to have lasted between 4 p.m. and into the morning. That's quite a long time, Brigadier. And in relation to that, last year the story was that if Nigeria took delivery of the Super Tucano aircraft, that it would be the game changer in the battle against insurgency. Why didn't it make any difference in the Shiroro event, and indeed in other attacks that the country has witnessed in many parts of the country, particularly in the Northwest in recent times? Please educate us, Brigadier.
Well, you see, the problem is that I made mention of the fact that security challenges are so fluid, they kept on evolving. Initially, we were dealing with the issue of militancy in the, South, and eventually we had the, insurgency and terrorism in the Northeast. And suddenly, we have the menace of banditry and kidnapping in the Northwest and North Central. Simply because we neglected certain things, and the criminal elements are taking undue advantage of it. I kept on making reference to our policing system. There is no country without policing. There are some countries in the world without armed forces, but there is no country without a policing system. And it will fare better if it has a very credible policing system. But the reverse is the case in the Nigerian society. And these are some of the things that we are seeing, we are paying for because we neglected our policing system. And coming back to the issue of Super Tucano, it is you look at the security challenges and, of course, the level of deployment of certain, some of this equipment. I think what we should be thinking is the issue of emphasizing on this intelligence, but again, not just the intelligence gathering, but the capacity to respond more proactively to this intelligence. And that, to a large extent, is dependent on technology, even though to some extent also the human intelligence is equally very important. And that is why I said,
but
the government ought to be more involved in the...
Brigadier, the point here is, why didn't the operatives, the army officials, that took on the terrorists, why didn't they get support? Why didn't they get backup, perhaps in the form of the Super Tucano aircraft? Aerial surveillance, aerial support could have made a difference to save the lives of those men. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I quite agree with you in the sense that, the level of support should have been more faster. But what I want you to understand, you look at the level of equipment. And I made mention of the fact that if I have my way, those gallant soldiers that died in Shiroro should be given national honors, even though posthumously. Why? Given the circumstances they found themselves, and they stood and fought all night, given the resources available to them, and insisted that they must cure the lives of Nigerians at the expense of their own lives. Now, coming to that, I made reference to the level of equipment and communication given the terrain. Remember, they called for reinforcement. They have to detach some of their, vehicle to go to somewhere there are, services. And that is what I am trying to say now, that technology should play a role. We should improve on the communication system, and we should improve on their equipment. We should improve on the number, because had it been that the communication system is far more effective, they would have understood the magnitude of the attackers and the fact that some people were lying in wait for them to ambush them. So given that, we ought to improve on that. But honestly, given the circumstances they found themselves, they performed creditably well, and nobody could have done any better than. And we owe them so much for standing the ground to do what they did for the benefit of the Nigerian society. And this is one of the things that the security forces go through on daily basis at the various theaters of the operations, and it need not to be so. Why? Because of the factors I earlier mentioned, and why? Because there are things that need to be done, and we have to keep on improving on it. Otherwise, we'll be going through the same cycle, as it were. But I can rest assure you, the military hierarchy, as it was, the general officer commanding one division, which falls 31 brigades of the Nigerian army, is under one division, has relocated to that place. And of course, the chief of army staff was equally there. But the most important thing, despite the losses, the soldiers suffered, their morale was very high. And we need to sustain that. We need to support them. We need to encourage them. Unlike a situation whereby people are always betraying these, soldiers. It may interest you to know, they overheard some of the attackers looking for a particular officer who has been a thorn in the flesh. And unfortunately, he was wounded, but thankfully, he's stable now. He's receiving medical attention. So the complexity of the conflict that we found ourselves is so, how do I describe it? It's so complex that it is not easy to comprehend it just the way you think it is. Yeah. They have been doing their best, but given the circumstances they found themselves, it is very difficult. But we have to improve on that. There should be more support at certain level given to people that are a detachment of military, given the terrain, given the communication system they found themselves. So we have to find an alternative. And beyond that, again, even the intelligence you are talking about, people are benefiting from the conflict situation in terms of the war economy. There are conflict merchants or entrepreneurs, so to speak, that benefit from it. They know what it takes to, mine and get, a benefit out of it. But there are people also that will ensure that the illegal activities continues by preventing the security forces, doing the right thing. And how do they do that? They pass information about the security forces. They live within the society. So we have to continuously be enlightening the people on the role they need to play. That, look, it is always good to support the government and the security forces to ensure that the right thing is done as against the criminal elements, because whatever they are doing is ephemeral. It is just a momental. They will just give you stipend and they will definitely come back for you too. So these are some of the issues. But beyond that, again, we have to put in some structures.
All right, we'll talk a little
involve the people in governance.
We'll talk a little more about that, and then another aspect of our conversation will also come to play when we return in just a moment. Don't go.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.